Hi, how are you? My name is Angela Polania. I'm excited to do this video here. FedRAMP, hot and heavy topic. A lot of my peers and clients are speaking about this and they want to know what changes are taking place. So today we're going to talk about a few things related to FedRAMP 20x. We'll do a series of talks over time, so stay tuned to get into the weeds with FedRAMP and all the changes that have taken place. So we will definitely get in the weeds with this and give you a line of sight of where you need to start if you're new to your FedRAMP FedRAMP journey and or you're looking to make changes or understand where you want to go over time. All right, so first question that's coming up, 20x or Rev5, what do I do? But let's not start there because that's really not the first question to be asked. So under the Consolidated Rules of FedRAMP 20x, the first thing that changed, there used to be the status on legacy FedRAMP Ready, which is like a pre-readiness check, and then you'll get into the in progress, and then until you get authorized. That thing is coming off here any minute. So FedRAMP Ready is not a path anymore. And now we have a different way of looking at this, which FedRAMP calls the architecture type, the path, and the class selection. So let's get into it. So here, some of the changes also here with FedRAMP guidance. Retire, right? So what things are coming off now in FedRAMP in general? The FedRAMP Ready that we just talked about, documenting as SSP or system security plan. That is, for many people, a very big relief. A thing of the past with the new Consolidated Rules. Obviously, there's legacy Rev5 that's still in play, and companies are still maintaining and keeping this, but there is a light in the horizon that this lengthy documents and things will not be required. Managing your POA&M or plan of actions and milestones, that is also a thing of the past. There's a different document for that, and a different way of doing it, completely different way of doing it, which we'll get into in a minute. And also, right, the legacy FedRAMP was a control by control review of depending on the impact level that you were certifying against. And now that's also not the way it's being done anymore. We have something called KSIs, key security indicators. And there is a control reference to this KSIs to NIST 153 controls, but it's for guidance and not for meeting each specific requirement exactly anymore. So let's talk a little bit about the timelines. This obviously is all available on FedRAMP website, but here's a quick summary. The FedRAMP that we just talked about a few minutes ago here is no longer a path as of 3 days ago. This video is being recorded on July 31st. So that's not a path anymore, but we'll talk about the other paths and options companies have right now. August 3rd, which is coming up, is the opening of applications with FedRAMP for Class A on the FedRAMP 20x program. And August 10th, temporary Rev5 pipelines open for Class B and Class C. And August 31st, 20x Class C and B pipelines will open as well. So that means that you could apply to get into this pipelines for certification from FedRAMP. And in January of next year, 2027, the Consolidated Rules become mandatory. What this means is that companies that already did FedRAMP 20x and are already in the marketplace that were part of those cohorts for those trial phases, cohort 2, for instance, those companies are going to have to make sure that all the new changes with the Consolidated Rules with the CRs are embedded in their programs going forward, and they could report on the new requirements effective January 2027. So at least the government gave those companies, I think it's like 20 or 30 of them, the opportunity to, get ready here in the next 6 months with all the changes that came through. And then June 11th, 2027 is the last day that a company could apply for the new Rev5 certification path. So we talked about this a little bit ago. What are kind of like the 3 questions or things that you need to think of when it comes to making the decision as to which path you're going to follow? So you want to first select the type, which is set by your architecture. You want to select the path, which whether or not you have a sponsor or not. And you want to select the class in which you want to share how much you're going to report. So specific here to make the decision is 3 questions in order. The type is set by your architecture. If you are a cloud native company that is inheriting that PaaS layer, the platform as a service layer from the from your cloud service provider, then that points you directly to 20x. If you run your own infrastructure, you don't have cloud native infrastructure, then that points you into Rev5. So this is not set by your preference, but who authorizes the layer beneath your app? So that's question number one. Then now you're in the path side. Do you have a sponsor or not? Now, if you don't have a sponsor, you definitely are going for FedRAMP 20x because that's the only way that you could do something in the federal government at this time. If you run your infrastructure, but you don't have a sponsor, then I think it's going to be very hard for you to do FedRAMP because 20x is for cloud service provider companies. So you will have to look for a sponsor if this is your situation in order to be able to be in the federal marketplace. So here also, but currently, if you're also a cloud service provider, right, on cloud native infrastructure, but you do have a sponsorship and you're kind of midway through the sponsorship, continue with your Rev5 program. And, you're allowed to do this, obviously. You don't have to. But if you're starting kind of from zero, 20x is the way to go. So hopefully that was clear. Now, the next thing is the class. So class is our class A, B, and C, and D that were drafted in the Consolidated Rules. And this is very new and different. And not to have them confused with the impact levels of 199 of low, moderate, and high. This is different. This is how much you want to share and report to the government. So going back to your type, right? And just to summarize this again, if you are inheriting from cloud service providers like AWS FedRAMP Moderate or GovCloud, Azure Government, Google Cloud for Government, and obviously you're not managing, the servers and the infrastructure, really 20x is the way to go, unless, as we discussed before, you already have some sort of sponsorship with an agency, and then you're kind of in path with a Rev5 with the agency, then really should continue in that path. Now, if you are, like we said before, you don't own your data, you're not sitting on cloud native infrastructure, you're more in a traditional data center environment, and you have a sponsorship, then Rev5 is definitely for you. If you don't have a sponsorship, again, in this category, and you want to do FedRAMP 20x, is not meant to be for companies that are now cloud service providers and are on cloud native infrastructure. So the path, we talked about it a little bit before, right? If you have no sponsor, FedRAMP 20x is your path because Rev5 is still one that is requiring agency sponsorship. So that makes it easy for a lot of companies. And then obviously we get a little bit into the classes in a second here. And if you feel like you need Class D, it's currently available until 2027 sometime, that you would, Class C, right? Class C, which is really kind of, let's say, equivalent, but not really too high. That's only available on Rev5 for now and not on 20x. So you would want to wait. But the reality is that if you haven't done anything in the federal government due to Class D from day one, it's not a good idea. This is not like security grade, as some people are calling it. So you want to go in phases, and we'll talk about that here in a second. So let's talk about the classes now. So you have the Class A, B, C, and D. Class A right now, it's like the on-ramp to get started with being listed in the federal government. What this did, which is new, and it did not exist before, and there's some criticism out there related to this, but I think it's, a creative way to getting started with federal government path, but you can sit here in this class forever, is if you already have a SOC 2, so most of these B2B technology companies like yourselves already have this, and ISO 27016. You could use this certificate in particular with, in addition to answering other questions and covering some KSIs, which we'll talk about in a minute. This is a path to go and get registered. The barrier of entry is really low, and it's a good way to get warmed up and get listed in the marketplace and start gaining some momentum if you're looking to advance through these progressive classes. If you decide not to do anything after 12 months, then you will be removed out of the marketplace, because the intent is not to sit on Class A forever, but to continue progressively move into the different classes. So Class B, you have more what they call rules and KSIs that are required in this category, and it's more reporting and ongoing reporting to the federal government, to FedRAMP. As you move, same thing with Class C, it's more rules now. Instead of having, there's something in FedRAMP now that's called a should or must, you have more must most controls is like you must absolutely meet hell or high water in Class C, and as you progressively move. So there's just more requirements, and then also like the frequency of your reporting requirements to the government increases as your class increases here as well. And then, as we said a few minutes ago, Class D is not available in 20X until sometime in 2027, but it runs right now in Rev5 only at the moment. So one of the things that I said a little bit ago, and just to reiterate again, these classes are not to be treated the same as FIPS 199 impact levels of low, moderate, and high, because this is a different way of looking at security. So making equivalency would be a mistake, and I know something that I have from FedRAMP adamantly make sure that people understand. This is just higher reporting requirements to show your security posture, to show your continuous monitoring and pervasive evidence capabilities to demonstrate that you have a security program that is defensible and able to produce all these artifacts and real-time evidence, or almost real-time evidence, to the government. So let's go back a little bit to Class A. As we said before, SOC 2 is now the federal on-ramp, because this plus a set of mandatory rules, about 22 mandatory rules that you have to follow, and 7 KSIs versus 50 something that exists at the moment, it's what you have to do. So by August 3rd, as we talked about in the timeline, you could apply to be a Class A on FedRAMP 20X on the marketplace by completing and coming up with this evidence for the rules, as well as the KSIs that are applicable Class A. If you need more information as to what that exactly is, look me up, Angela Polania, and LinkedIn, or send me an email at apolania@Elevate Consult, and I'll send you exactly what you need to do for Class A application. So then now the headline change, right, for commercial SaaS with Class A, right? You list in the federal marketplace. You don't need a sponsorship with FedRAMP 20X. Mandatory rules still apply, but it's a lot less, right? What we talked about with Class A, it's only 20 something versus more. And then only 7 key security indicators are in scope for Class A. So SOC 2 became really valuable right now, and it helps you with starting your journey with the federal marketplace if you hadn't done that before and your company wishes to do so. So another thing that changed is the deliverables. A lot of people, felt rightfully so that FedRAMP was a very hard path to get there. I mean, the sponsorship alone was a big, lengthy process, but also the process itself of becoming FedRAMP authorized was very strenuous. So there were some classic documents like the System Security Plan that has disappeared with the new FedRAMP CR rules. And now we have what we call Certification Package Overview, which I'll explain in a second, as well as a Security Decision Record. These two documents requests are kind of the new SSP. And the Certification Package Overview is kind of covering what is the purpose of your tool, your architecture, your diagram, and other pertinent information about your system, whereas a Security Decision Record is capturing information that used to be in the SSP, but in a lot more consolidated format of your ports and services, mapping of controls. Some of this is optional. I'm assuming, how it is optional. You're going to want to do it because you want to be complete. And it also became the SAR replacement. The SAR was the audit report, security assessment report, that has come off as the way it used to be. And here the assessors, used to be called 3 POWs, the assessors will document their assessment of the KSIs and rules that they observe at the client, and provide that, really, of the KSIs, and provide their assessment conclusions. So now this is the package that, these 2 documents, which the government gives you exactly how they want to be submitted. They give you the JSON templates, are the 2 key documents that need to be submitted. And then another big thing too is in the legacy FedRAMP world, there's the concept of the POA&M, the Plan of Actions and Milestones. And in here, you documented all your vulnerabilities and findings. Now there's a different model, the vulnerability response model, where the calculations of how vulnerabilities come about, and then the documentation or risk acceptance, or when things are going to be remediated, or requirements as to when findings and vulnerabilities need to be remediated, are now documented and submitted to the government. They kind of have to be persistently maintained to ensure that this is being done as the way FedRAMP intends it to be in the future. And they came up with the pain model for ranking vulnerabilities to determine the impact, whether they're severe impact to a federal agency or the customers of the cloud service provider, or limited impact. So a new way of calculating vulnerabilities, a new way of documenting, a new way of not the traditional way with the scores of the scanners, from 0 to 10, critical to informational. It's a different world right now. And then concepts like internet reachability and internet exploitability are part of the way that you need to assess these vulnerabilities. And this is an area where I'm seeing a lot of hand-in-hand work with your vulnerability scanning companies to help you provide this information to you in the way that you need it in the future. And then, there's going to be periodic checks. You're supposed to have, this Trust Center, which is this portal where the federal government, FedRAMP, will have access, and our agencies will have access to your Trust Center to show your persistent evidence collection process and kind of like the health of the controls. And you also need to submit, depending on the class and obviously the program that you have for FedRAMP, whether you need to submit certain evidence to FedRAMP in the JSON formats and human readable format on those timelines indicated by the Consolidated Rules. So now let's talk about 3 scenarios here that tell you which route you should kind of follow. And it's really a recap of what we talked about, right? So you're a cloud native SaaS, you already have a SOC 2 Type 2, and you have no sponsor, I think, and you want to work with the federal government, and you think you have a chance. Starting with cloud right now, beautiful. I mean, really little work. I mean, Sue was a lot more work than doing what you need to do right now, and applying very soon, August 3rd, and getting the information you need to submit. Again, if you need to know exactly what you need to do to submit, what evidence you need to provide, what the KSIs are being reviewed, and how to put this information in machine readable form, hit me up and I'll provide that detailed document that we have on how to go about all of this. Now, if you're on your infrastructure and you have an agency sponsorship, we talked about this. Obviously, the path is Rev5 at this time. And then scenario C, you hold FedRAMP Ready, and you decided after July 31st, you probably want to look, and you have no and you have a sponsor. So again, here, if you have a sponsor, then you may want to continue through the pipeline of Rev5 because you already have a sponsor. But if you don't have a sponsor, you definitely want to start pursuing FedRAMP 20x and start with Class A, figure out how to get into B or C, or maybe jump into C directly, and move into that progressive status that FedRAMP is expecting after Class A. So there's many ways to look at this, but here's some, interesting scenarios that kind of give you an idea of which path to move into. So some of the things I think I'm seeing, or questions really, is just because of all this new lingo and figuring out the path to go, is starting with the path already versus figuring out the architecture and the program that you're going to follow, whether you're going to do agency or the 20x program with no sponsorship. Focusing on the old deliverables. Right now, FedRAMP 20x provided all what is needed to submit to them in JSONs and easily to translate into human readable form. So work with those deliverables, not the legacy Rev5, unless you're on Rev5, you're working on Rev5 implementation. But then if you're an agency Rev5, then yes, you have to use legacy. But if you're on FedRAMP 20x, on the new FedRAMP Rev5, then there's other things you need to consider as well. And then treating a class as a security grade, we talked about that. This is just how much, instead of considering as a 199 impact level, you want to look at it as every progressive state of the class increments are just more evidence and more timely evidence and reports that need to be sent to FedRAMP for review over time. So quick recap, right? Determine architecture. If you have a sponsor or not, what are you going to do, right? 20x, if you have no sponsor, is pretty much the way to go. And remember, right, you want to, if you don't have right now a sponsorship, you haven't done anything federal government, but you feel like you can, and it would be a good business move, start with Class A. Window starts next week, August 3rd. And, call us if you need any help going through this process. Contact me, hit me up on LinkedIn. Love to help you. We have a lot of this already dissected and all the how-tos for meeting all the KSIs and the control requirements and the rules and how to, most importantly, put all this information in a way that FedRAMP will accept it with machine readable data, as well as the packages and the documents that need to be sent. So your next step, right? Find your path and figure out what would be the best way of going about this. I thank you so much for your time. And I look forward to seeing you in another video in the future. And hopefully this was helpful. Hit me up again at apolania@elevateconsult.com. Find me on LinkedIn. And I look forward to connecting. Bye-bye.